who have participated in this side event. I would be very happy to meet you. I'm very happy to meet you and my friends who I had already seen several times. I unfortunately, the report that I'm going to present to you today is about my death row brother, Amjad Hossein Panahi, political prisoner on death row, 24 years old, who has been sentenced to death recently in Iran. It is a long report, and as a human rights activist in these years, I have been working on several cases in these years. But now, unfortunately, I should work on the case of my own brother. But I like to explain you more, and I hope the translator wouldn't have so much difficulties. As you know, after the recent uprisings in Iran and the increasing crackdown in Iran, unfortunately, the government is using political execution, especially in Kurdistan, and some political activists, including Amjad Hossein Panahi, have been sentenced to death. Amjad is a 24-year-old young Kurdish man who has been arrested in Sanandaj in summer when he was going to visit our mother who is ill, and he was along with 3 other activists, and they were shot by security forces, and 3 activists were killed at the place, and Amjad was shot and arrested by the IRGC forces. As you know, Amjad, after being arrested, because of the process that we have in Iran and the security environment that we have in Iran, because even the political arrests are so that the family was not informed about Amjad's situation, and there were some news that he was killed under torture, and after 7 months of being detained in IRGC and intelligence ministry, finally he was transferred to Sanandaj prison, and we could after his meetings with the family, we learned about these 7 months, and he has told it in some interviews with Herana. He was tortured severely in these 7 months and was under physical and mental pressure, and unfortunately after this he had kidney bleeding, and as of now that I'm talking to you, my brother hasn't been transferred to any medical center to get special treatment. So in January, Amjad was put on trial for the first time. So we had this picture that he would be sentenced, and there would be a due process. But in the court, how the court went on, we were all opposed to it, because they didn't let Amjad to talk in the court, and the lawyer wasn't allowed to defend him as he wanted. And also the process of the court, which was supposed to be some sessions, but it was just one session, and 10 days after that session, in a shocking news for us, for his lawyer, and for Amjad himself, he was sentenced to death in the first branch of the Revolutionary Court. This was the beginning that we follow up his case more seriously, and we asked many special rapporteurs and political bodies and activists and human rights activists to help us. In the first official letter of our family, we said that we believe that this was a political act by the court, because there were uprisings in Iran and hundreds had been arrested and tens had been killed under torture, and Kurdistan was in a special situation, and Turkey had attacked Afrin and the Iraqi Kurdistan after the referendum. So the Kurdistan, the environment, the whole political landscape in the Kurdistan were actually focused on Afrin or on Iraqi Kurdistan. So the government misused this situation and, in a shocking act, sentenced Ramin to death. A sentence that Ramin and our lawyer and he himself knew it as inhumane and unreal and baseless, even in accordance to the Iranian law. After he was sentenced, there were protests in Iran and in Europe, and in 20 European cities there were protests and demonstrations, and in Kurdistan more than 150 activists wrote a letter to the governor, and outside Iran 1,500 activists condemned this verdict in a letter. Also 32 member MPs wrote a letter to the head of judiciary and asked him to abolish the death sentence of Ramin and Hidayat Abdullahpur. I want to say that this process was involved with total violation of human rights, and now his case has been sent to the branch 39 of the Supreme Court in Qom city, which is illegal actually. But this case, unfortunately, was one of the cases that in recent years in Kurdistan had been influenced by IRGC and the intelligence ministry and had been led by them. And the case was out of its legal base, and the IRGC and the intelligence ministry sentenced Ramin to death. And even now they have sent the case to a branch that they make sure that the death sentence will be confirmed and he will be executed. He was sentenced to death because on charge of membership in Komale party. And for the first time, I can say, in Iran, he was sentenced to Baghi, but because before this, the political activists were charged with Moharebe, and now we have a new word of Baghi, and Baghi means a person who protests or who rises up against the government, and he was sentenced to death on this charge. I want to talk about this word and the sentence. Baghi means that a person takes arms to fight against the Islamic government. But however, in Kurdistan, Komale had given up armed fight against the government years ago. And on the other hand, Ramin had taken part in no armed conflict, and he was arrested in Sanandaj unarmed. Having arms with Ramin, this is a claim by IRGC and Intelligence Ministry, which has been denied by his family, by Ramin himself, and by his lawyer. So unfortunately, many activists in Kurdistan say that there is a new circle of political executions in Kurdistan, a new wave of. Right now, 15 political activists are on death row in Kurdistan. Zanyar Moradi, Loghman Moradi, Hushang, and many other activists who have been sentenced to death because of membership in one of Kurdish parties. But Ramin's case and its separation and the difference that it has to other cases in Iran is that they have used a word which is new, and on the other hand, his case had been sent to a branch in the Supreme Court which is totally irrelevant to the political cases. Also, in this time, in the social landscape in Kurdistan, especially in Sanandaj, there was a wide support for Ramin and other death row prisoners. There were meetings with the governor of Kurdistan, with the mayor, and with the city council, and governmental authorities in Kurdistan, and judicial authorities in Kurdistan. Even the representative of the supreme leader and the president. But unfortunately, the Interior Ministry, Intelligence Ministry, and IRGC have said that to terrorize the people of Kurdistan, they will execute him. And many activists who had been arrested in Kurdistan, they were killed under torture recently. The Iranian government this time wants to send a clear message to the Iranian people that anybody who opposes this regime is going to be executed. So I, as an activist and as Ramin's brother, am here to defend Ramin and others, to raise their voice, to that you hear them. Because we believe not only Ramin's sentence is not death, but he shouldn't even be in prison. He has been fighting for a free society and a secular and a democracy and a secular society and democracy and justice and social justice. And he has been sentenced to death for this. Because of lack of time, the short time, I cannot tell you the whole story, but because of that, when I was coming yesterday, I have a short message from Ramin and from our family. So I want to give you this message. Ramin, because of the security environment in Sanandaj, especially in Sanandaj prison, it is difficult to send messages to outside prison. In a visit with my mother, he was informed that I was going to come here. So he asked my mother to tell you he doesn't accept the due process. He doesn't accept this trial. He doesn't accept imprisonment and death sentences. He thanks all the people who has defended him in this time, and he knows himself as a young person in Kurdistan who has been fighting, who has exercised civil opposition to the government, and because of that he had to leave the country, and when he wanted to go and meet his mother, this happened to him. So shortly I want to tell you about my other brother, civil rights activist, who was arrested because of defending Ramin, Amjad Hossein Panahi. He's a human rights activist. He had no connection to political parties, and he was arrested, and he was under torture for 2 months. His nails were pulled out, and he was under psychological pressure. He was put under pressure to confess against his brother, and in the same court as Ramin was sentenced to death, He was sentenced to 8.5 years imprisonment, and he is now in Santander Central Prison. Because of this, if I want to tell you human rights violations only about my two brothers, we have to talk hours and days. But I want to say, Ramin and Afshin are two civil activists who have been arrested when they were 16 years old by the intelligence ministry, and they were tortured even then, and they were harassed, and they were made to cooperate with the intelligence ministry. After these pressures, and we know, and you know, Ramin left the country like thousands of others, and he went to he took refuge in the Iraqi Kurdistan, and he became a member of Komele. And you know, membership in the Kurdish parties doesn't have death sentence. Yeah, Komele is against the government, but it values democracy and social justice and it's fighting for a part of the Iranian society. He was active in this party, but he had never taken place in the armed conflicts, because officially the armed fighting against the government has been put aside years ago. And now he, as a political activist, has been sentenced to death. He has been harassed by the government since when he was 16. In the end, I ask you in the name of Hossein Panahi family and all those who hear me to help us, because we believe without your help, Ramin is going to be executed, and more people are going to be executed, and the government would be more encouraged to execute its opposition or kill them under torture and then give the body to their families. Thank you so much, and I hope that you human rights and political activists and journalists would be Ramin's voice, and Hidayat Abdullahpur's voice, and Zanyar and Lughman Atena Daimi and Golrukh Hirai's voice, and all our dear friends who are under torture and under pressure in Iran. You know that Sohail Arabi, Atena Daimi, Golrukh Hirai, and many others are imprisoned and are hunger strike in Iranian prisons. So they need us who are here, who have freedom of speech, who have contact to the human rights organizations, to be their voice, because the government is using this tool of silence to increase the pressure on these activists. And as I said, we believe that if the international community wouldn't react and all Iranians wouldn't be united, Ramin is going to be executed, and Golrukh wouldn't be heard, and Atena wouldn't be heard, and Sohail will be killed on hunger strike or under torture. Thank you so much.